that feels a little better.
More compliments on this shirt.
Do you really?
Yeah. People love this shirt. They got it as a gift, a $7 shirt. People like it.
It's a good color.
It is.
I like that yellow. It kind of really comes off.
I like the guy. Welcome to Rick's Corner. We're just sitting here talking about my one of my favorite shirts I got as a gift, and people always remark, wherever I go, where'd you get that shirt? I gotta have that shirt. It was like a $7 shirt as a gift, and I just wear it for fun.
What's the name of that character?
That's the Cookie Monster.
The Cookie Monster.
Yeah. Well, I've got Doug Brignole back. We got something we're going to talk about, and he's always good information. And we were sitting here talking about, and what it was what are we going to do about these shoulders?
You know, if you go around the gym and you ask everyone in there who lifts weights on a regular basis, do you have shoulder problems? You'll get nearly 100%.
Yes, all the time.
Nearly 100% of the people saying, and every one of those people thinks it's an individual thing. They don't realize that they're just part of the big mass. There must be something wrong with the process.
It's funny you say that because I'm with my girlfriend. I go out and I'll ask somebody, how's your shoulders? How are your knees? She says, why do you ask everybody? Make you feel better if they're injured? I said, no, it gives me a comparison.
Right.
Because I don't want, perspective. I don't want to feel like I'm the only one that has this whole problem in the whole wide world.
And more people should do what you do. They should ask other people so they know that it must be what we're doing.
And first thing people say, well, you know you're getting older, it's aging. No, it's not.
Right.
This guy's 30 years old. It has nothing to do with
Guy's
aging.
30 years old, and you could be 55 years old and not have any shoulder problems.
Exactly. Or you can be my age and not have any.
Right. As long as you're doing the right thing and avoiding the wrong things.
Exactly. And you know, way back in the day we were pressing, we would do the standing alternate dumbbell presses up to like 80 pounds. Strong as an ox. It felt great. My shoulders were nice and round. I never thought anything about it.
Right.
Now I don't even can't even do the Smith machine.
Right.
With 5 pounds.
Right.
I mean I can, but it hurts.
Right.
You know, it's so.
We just think it's part and parcel of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's part and parcel of heavy wrong lifting.
Yeah. Such as
overhead presses.
Overhead presses.
Well, we're going to talk about those things. We're going to talk about overhead presses. We're going to talk about incline presses, upright rows, parallel bar dips. The things that strain the shoulder.
Okay, can I start with one?
Let's start with one.
Let's start with the parallel bar dips.
Okay.
Because I remember years ago when I go down to Santa Monica on the beach, and I didn't go to the gym. I hadn't even moved here yet, but I go down to Muscle Beach and hang out, and they had a chinning bar and they have a dipping bar.
Yeah.
And that is still standing there since 1945. Down on Santa Monica right now, it's still there.
Right.
So I'd go over and I'd do some chins and dips, and I'd see Larry Scott walking around. I said, that's what I want to look like, right?
Right.
And the chins and dips gave me a good pump. You
Right.
know, the dips pump the chest and they pump the triceps, but they're really, really hard on the shoulder joints.
Yes.
Very hard.
Right.
And over time of doing them, adding weight with the weight belt, it's more and it's more and it's more.
Right.
Pretty soon your shoulders start to sound like a ratchet wrench.
Right. Right.
So,
When you're a teenager, you can be resilient.
Yeah.
You can abuse your body and either it doesn't get hurt or it hurts, but then it gets recovered real quickly.
Yes, of course. So what's the solution to that?
All right. The first thing I'm going to say is I see a lot of people in the gym going in there and they do their shoulder warm-ups, quote unquote, and they do their shoulder, quote unquote, repair. They do internal and external rotation. They do these big arm circles.
Yeah.
They take a pair of weights, they go like this, right?
Yep.
And then they go immediately and do the thing that's injuring their shoulder.
Yeah. I've seen that so much.
So you can warm up the shoulder all you want if you don't stop doing that which injures it.
Right. Makes sense?
Warming up isn't going to prevent it, number one. Number two is internal and external shoulder rotation does not heal.
But why do they get people that I see them doing this all the time with a band or back and forth, back and forth? Now, it hurts when I go back there. And if I come here, it's okay.
I'll tell you why.
It throws it off.
No, I'll tell you why. Okay, the first thing I want to say about that exercise is that we, as a population, physical therapists, trainers, have made the mistaken assumption that when your arm is straight forward, it's in the middle of the range of motion.
Okay.
It's not. It's near the end of the range of motion.
Okay.
The range of motion is all the way here and barely past there.
That's true, yeah, because going past that, it's really hard.
And yet you see people really like straining to get to the other side.
That reminds me of opening my gate the wrong way.
Yeah, right. You're forcing it to go in a way it doesn't have to go.
Yeah.
It shouldn't go, right?
Yeah.
So the range of motion is from here to just slightly past here, which means, by the way, when you're doing external rotation, you don't lie on your side. You lie on your back.
Okay.
And then you rotate up. Because if you lie on your side, you're getting nothing where you're strongest.
Oh, you're
and
not,
you get the most where you're weakest.
You're not getting resistance.
Right.
Yeah.
So So, and by the way, that strengthens the infraspinatus muscle. It does not heal the infraspinatus muscle. If it's injured, if it's torn, you're going to aggravate it by trying to work it.
Okay.
You're not going to suddenly repair something that's injured and then go do something else that injures it even more.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know, sometimes you see people doing rotation of the shoulder this way. That's the wrong way to do it. And the reason why is because the infraspinatus muscle starts in the inside edge of the shoulder blade, and it goes out and wraps around the head of the humerus, the head of the upper arm bone, right? So when it pulls, it rotates the arm around toward the inner edge of the scapula, of the shoulder blade. Well, that's fine when you're doing this, but when you're doing it like this, you're trying to rotate it around, but it's trying to go in, not down. So the best way to work the infraspinatus is with your arm alongside your body, lying on your side, or with a cable that's pulling you this way.
Right.
And only to here, no farther than that.
Right.
And it should be heaviest here and lightest at the top. Okay. But again, we have to stop doing the things which injure our shoulder joint.
Okay.
And so this is a big subject, and we're not going to be able to cover all of it here. But I just want to say that if we think about what our ancestors, our early ancestors did in the jungle, in the forest, in the desert, whatever, they didn't do a lot of the things that we do in a gym. They didn't do overhead presses. They didn't do anything on an incline, right? They did things on flat or on decline. They push in a downward direction. That's what the pecs primarily do. So we need to avoid the things that a shoulder was not made to do. If you look up impingement syndrome on Google or whatever, you'll find the most common cause of impingement syndrome, which is the inflaming of this supraspinatus tendon, is putting your arms up over your head. Technically, they shouldn't be put over your head, and you don't have to put them over your head. Every muscle on your body can be worked plenty effectively without doing that.
Yeah, you know, back in the days of doing heavy bench presses and heavy inclines and heavy presses, that's just completely powering down that shoulder joint.
Yeah.
Banging it and banging it and banging it and ripping it and banging it.
Yeah.
And all those heavy weights. And at the time, of course, you don't really feel it.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, it starts to wear and tear.
You have to keep in mind that when you look at someone like Arnold, or any of these guys that have these magnificent physiques, and you see them doing an incline barbell press or an overhead press, and then you see them with their shirt off and they look fantastic, you assume mistakenly that all the exercises they did contributed to that look.
Yeah.
When in fact they didn't all contribute equally or at all. Some contributed more, some contributed less. All you know is that's the end result.
Right.
The ones that are damaging to the shoulder joint didn't undo the benefit of the good exercise, so they'll still look good.
Right.
So we have to understand that they may not know what's damaging them either. They're just doing all of it, and they're getting an overall good result.
It's like, you know, it's like bodybuilding mentality. If you take something less is less, but more is better. You know, the doctor will say, take this, and he'll double the dose. I went to a doctor the other day for thyroid. He says, just take what I tell you. Don't triple it, because I know you guys triple things.
Yeah.
And it's true. You know, I mean, if you're going to take one D-ball tablet, you're going to take 6.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you take, you're going to have one protein drink, you're going to have 5. So that's not always the case. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing when you're adding on to a body part and you're doing shoulders. Okay, say you're doing presses, you're doing front laterals, side laterals, back laterals, and all of a sudden, well, that's not enough. I think I'll do upright rows. So now you're doing all these exercises without eliminating any one of the one.
Yeah. Let me explain those two exercises: the upright row.
Yeah.
And the incline presses, so you have an understanding of why those aren't good exercises. And I don't mean from a damaging perspective, I mean from a benefit perspective.
Okay.
When you're doing an upright row, you're going like this, right? And if you look at the upper arm bone, it's doing something very similar to what it would be doing if you were doing a side raise, right? So all you've done is you've bent your arm, which of course is lessen the length of the lever, which means it magnifies the resistance less, which means you can technically lift more, but the deltoid isn't lifting more, and then you've added a downward rotation to the shoulder, right? Which does not add to the deltoid benefit. It only strains the internal rotator, actually the external rotator, because you're trying to fight it. So when you're doing an upright row, just ask yourself, why am I doing this if I already did side raises? You're doing a duplication of effort, but this isn't as good as the side raise because now you've twisted the joints, you've bent the arm, neither of which benefits the deltoid. So that's an unnecessary exercise at best, in addition to the strains of the shoulder. When you're doing an overhead press, look, if your arms were attached to your torso right in the middle between the upper and the lower pec, in other words, if that line between the two arms was right in the middle between upper and lower pec, there would be something to move your arms up toward and something to move your arms down toward.
Right, I get that.
Well, your arms are at the very top of the pecs.
Right.
So when you go straight forward, you're already hitting the upper pecs.
Right.
Right? If you go down, you're hitting more of the meat of the pecs.
Right.
When you go up, you don't have any attachments on your chin or on your
You're
nose.
hitting nothing there.
You're not moving toward the origin of any muscle. So there's no benefit to doing that. Do the pecs help? Do they participate? Yes. But not nearly as much as they would on a flat or on a decline angle.
Okay. What about, not upright rows, but a little wider grip for a high pull?
Well, it's the same thing.
Is it the same
Yeah,
thing?
I mean, look, if you take this movement,
right,
and you look at the upper arm bone, and you say, okay, well, I'm going to bend my arm like this, I'm going to rotate my arm down, and now I'm doing this. Well, this is still doing the same thing.
The same thing if you spread out wider. Wider the grip.
All you're doing, see, now you've got a tender joint, but if you rotate the arm down like this, that's not going to help the deltoid. It's only going to strain the joint.
That kills me. It hurts me. What about front raises?
Like this. Well, front raises are interesting. We've been told that if you raise your arm to the front, it's front deltoid. If you raise it to the side, it's side deltoid. But what you have to ask yourself is what muscle is opposite resistance? So here, opposite resistance is the side deltoid. Here it's still you're still got the side delt. Now you have to rotate your arm around like this and get that side deltoid out of the way.
Like a hammer.
Like a hammer, or even like your elbow has to be pointing down so that only the front deltoid. As soon as you do this, you kick this back into the opposing resistance. Okay, so this is number one problem. Number two problem is the resistance curve is wrong, which means you're starting with the least amount of resistance and you're ending with the most, which is opposite your strength curve. You are stronger down here and weaker up here. So you want to have heavier down here and lighter up here. How do you do that? Lie down on your back, either on a flat bench or a slight incline, a slight decline, and do a front press with your elbows pointing down, and now you're hitting that front deltoid heaviest in the beginning, lightest at the end.
Okay.
That's the front deltoid movement. That's the way it should be.
Okay.
Everything else has got mechanical problems.
Okay, what about rear delt?
Rear deltoid is interesting. We've been taught that you need to either lie down or a reverse butterfly machine and go straight back like this. It's a very good question, by the way. If you look at the rear deltoid in an anatomy chart, what you'll see is that it starts on the inner edge of the rear delt of the scapula, of the shoulder blade, and it comes down. Now, on a previous show, we talked about alignment, right? And we talked about how the direction of movement has to be consistent with the origin and the insertion of the muscle. Well, if I look at you from the back, and I draw a line between the origin and the insertion, that's a diagonal movement. If you carry that diagonal straight forward, you realize the movement should be slightly higher at the beginning, slightly lower at the rear, because then you're traveling along that diagonal path of the origin and insertion of the muscle.
Okay.
So when you see someone doing a rear deltoid exercise on an incline bench, starting low, ending high, that's going to hurt your shoulder.
Sure.
Because you're going the opposite of what you're supposed to end low. Think about evolution. We grab the branches, pull down. When did we pull here and go wide? Never. You grab, pull. You grab, pull. It's a diagonal movement. That's the rear deltoid function. So that's the movement. Now all you got to do is get the resistance to pull from over there so that you're starting with the most and ending with the least. If you're face down and gravity is coming right here, you're starting with the least, where you're strongest, and ending with the most, where you're weakest.
Okay.
So you need cables.
Okay. I was going to say cables.
You need to cross the cables and then come at a diagonal angle. Okay. That is the idea.
Yeah, it doesn't take much weight.
That's the ideal rear deltoid movement right there.
It doesn't take much weight.
You have to have it. See, there's a rule that's called the opposing position rule. The muscle has to be directly on the opposite side of resistance, right? So if the resistance is coming from over there, whatever's on the opposite side, my rear deltoid is going to get loaded. If I go like this, by the time I get over here, I'm going to start hitting upper back and everything else. You don't want your upper back to help.
No.
You want the most right here, and then you want it to diminish as you lock into the contraction.
But upper back's going to play into it when you work back.
Exactly.
And it's all going to, and chest is going to work shoulders.
Right.
And it's all going to, and when you work bicep, you're hitting the bicep tendon that goes underneath your deltoid.
Right.
So if it's injured, you're going to feel it too.
But think about the front deltoid movement.
Yeah.
The side deltoid movement, the rear deltoid movement, and say, now, do any of those resemble the overhead press?
No, it's perfect.
They don't resemble it at all.
No.
This is the ideal movement of rear deltoid. This is the ideal movement. By the way, no higher than this is the ideal movement. In other words, this origin coming toward the insertion, that's all you want. In fact, if I hold your collarbone down, right, you realize you can't get that arm up very high. If you go up higher than that, it's because you're shrugging. If you hold this down, you say, how high can I go? Well, that's the contraction of that deltoid.
Then you go higher, trap is coming into it.
Yeah, you start doing this, right? So the idea that you're going to do is something over your head to get your deltoid, when it's as simple as just doing this.
Yeah.
You say, well, why am I doing all this? It's almost like trying to do a curl behind your back. Why complicate it? Why distort the joint? You don't need to do that.
We're going to have questions from you guys. I know you're going to say, does this really matter? Is it wrong? Is it right? Is it wrong? But it makes sense to me.
Well, is it wrong or is it right? Again, what's the percentage of people with shoulder problems in the gym?
Yeah, many.
Please.
Yeah.
It's something we're doing.
Exactly. So try it.
Yeah.
I mean, try what Bill. I started to say Bill. Try what Doug is saying, and see if it works for you. I'm going to try it. I got to change my angles a little bit.
Yeah.
I think this upward angle with the open hand, palm up, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Now, what I would do if I were you is I probably would lie flat on a mat.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to go past your body.
No.
Just lie flat on your back on a mat with a pair of dumbbells, and right from here, you don't even have to go all the way up. Just right here at the beginning, the early part of the movement, you'll feel that front delt. If you don't believe me, do a lightweight for 50 reps and tell me what you feel.
I'm going to start light. That's the other thing, you guys. Always start light on something.
Yes, always start light.
I'd start with 2 or 3 big plates on the bench press, and I don't do that, of course, now. But I found that starting much lighter with really lightweight with 30 or 40 reps.
Yeah.
Second set so much easier.
And you would think you would fatigue out sooner. You don't. You get stronger.
You get stronger. It's really amazing. I noticed in the past month when I go to the gym and I have aches and pains. We talked about this. I have arthritis. All right, and I am getting older. I go to the gym and I do my first set and it's like, oh my God, why am I even here?
Yeah.
I just want to go home. I've never felt this way in my life. I've never wanted to skip a workout.
Yeah.
So I do my set and then I sit there and I do a second set. By the third set, all of a sudden everything became easy.
Yeah, right.
And
I call it the seduction. Go into the gym and say, I'm just going to start light, and if I feel like going heavier, I do. Yeah. And you always do.
You always do.
If you start light, you basically seduce the body into wanting more.
Right, and you don't have to go heavy, but you increase your poundage a little bit. But you get a better workout, and everything starts to heal up and starts to feel better. Yeah. It's loosening up. If you do nothing at all, you might as well sit home and you're just going to vegetate and get sick.
Right, and of course the worst thing is to combine heavyweight with an unnatural movement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the solution for deltoids.
Well, that's in a nutshell. Okay. It's a complicated joint. It's the most mobile joint in the entire body.
Right.
No joint. The second most mobile joint is the hip, but even your hip doesn't do this.
No.
Right.
Let me tell you something before we close out of this. I heard something today. There's a new method called cryogenics, where they freeze your body.
Oh.
Now, there's a lot of guys in the...
Cryogenics.
Cryogenics, okay.
Right.
They're going into this, it's like a booth for 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and you stand in there, and it drops 274 degrees below zero. It's 274 degrees below zero. You stand in your underwear, you wear earmuffs, a face mask, and socks. And apparently, it takes all the inflammation out of all your joints instantly. So after 2.5 minutes, you come out, you have to let your body temperature come back. They take your temperature of your knee, and I think it was like 8 above. And then you just kind of thaw out for a minute, and then it's supposed to...
Well, logically, it makes sense. I mean, if you put cold on an inflamed thing, it's going to de-inflame. Now, the question I would have is, is there any damaging effect to other organs and things like that?
Well, there's a lot of questions I have.
Yeah.
Number one, you feel good when you leave, and then a few friends of mine that go, one of them is pretty obsessive. He goes every day. Now, it's $65 every time. That's a lot of money per week, Of
course, if you have the money and it works, then you're fine. But if you don't have a lot of money and it doesn't stay,
it's not permanent.
It's
So,
I mean, even if you only have to do it once a week, it's doable. But if you have to do it like every hour,
yeah, I mean, like come on. One guy says I did a back-to-back. I went in 2 hours later. I went in again.
Yeah, right.
There's another 130
yeah,
bucks.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money to throw away on something that's only temporary.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's less temporary than an aspirin.
Yeah. Exactly. The other side effect, it burns like 700 calories.
Oh, now that's interesting. Now they are doing some. They are doing some studies with endurance athletes and cold. They're finding that the heat that the body generates is what takes away the endurance. So there's a machine that you stick your whole hand in it, and it basically freezes the hand for like a minute, and then that pumps the blood through your whole body, and you actually get more recovery time.
Interesting.
Or less recovery time, I should say. You recover faster.
It's coming out new stuff all the time. I was telling you that Roger Keller and Pete Gromkowski have this H2 Force, which is a hydrogen pill. Now, it's 2 tablets, and you put in your water in the morning, and it fizzes up like Alka-Seltzer, and you drink it. And it's supposed to repair all the molecules in your body. It adds hydrogen to your balance of your pH levels and your acid in your body. And I've been doing it for 4 days, and I just told you when you come here, I actually have less pain in my body.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's it, but that's the only thing I changed.
Well, there's 2 things we need to make sure that we're... Number one is, does it work? Do you feel it working, or are you kidding yourself, right? Is it psychosomatic?
Yeah.
And the other is, does it continue working?
Yeah.
Because some things, they work in the beginning, and then after a while it starts to fade, and everything's the same again. So,
I'm staying with it. I'm going to stay with it for the next few months to see.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't hurt. When I read up on it, what it does to your acid in your system and neutralizes it, it's all a good thing.
Right.
There's nothing bad about it. Same thing with putting lemon in your water. You put lemon in your water, it becomes an alkaline.
Right.
Now, everybody thinks lemon is an acid. It's not. It's an alkaline. So if you drink lemon water, it balances the acid in your system.
Yeah.
We all know that acid in your system causes all types of sores and cancers and different things.
I encourage people to research.
Yeah.
Right? Don't just take our word for it. Go online online, and always make sure that what you're seeing, what you're reading, comes from a neutral party. It doesn't come from someone who's saying, so if it says here, this is the greatest product on the planet, click here if you want to buy it,
Yeah.
then you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Oh,
It
yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean it
exactly.
doesn't work.
No.
But you have to consider it possibly a commercial.
I only bring it up because I'm trying it myself. I'm like a guinea pig, and if it works for me, I just pass it on to you guys
Right.
out there to see if you want to try it, and if you like it, fine. If you don't want to try it, don't buy it. But I'm willing to try anything now at my age to feel better.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through every day getting out of bed and feeling like an accident that just happened down the street.
And I was kind of want to know why it works.
Yeah.
Like if someone says this works, I swear it does, that's not enough for me.
Yeah.
I have to know the mechanism. I have to know why. It has to make logical sense to me.
It's funny you said. I have a comedian friend named Charles Schlatter. He's the voice of Roger Rabbit.
Oh.
And I interviewed him on another show, and he's a scientist on top of it. He's a very sneaky, kind of crazy little dude, very intelligent. His base is science, but he does comedy.
Yeah.
So when you want to know why, he says, I ask myself a question when I get up. It's a beautiful day. That's the artistic side of me, is a beautiful day. My scientist side is,
why is it a beautiful day?
Why is it happening?
Not that I don't like it.
Oh, man, it's so funny.
I just want to know why.
That is so funny. I want to remind you guys to go to rickdracenoriginals.com. I have all my old shirts there, my Gold's Gym shirts, my Golden Era bodybuilding, all the Muscle Beach designs.
By the way, I don't know if all of you watching know that he drew the first Gold's Gym logo.
Yes.
And he drew the World's Gym logo, too. So he's selling the Gold's Gym logo because it's his.
Right. And don't be confused with the media right now with this kid.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, wearing the Gold's Gym shirt.
I saw that.
Shot those people in
Yes.
church. He could have been wearing any shirt. He just happened to pick my design. So
Yeah.
it doesn't say anything bad about the designer Gold's Gym. It's just the shirt that he put on that probably was clean that day.
Right.
So he could have been a 24-hour fitness.
And by the way, he sure didn't look like he used Gold's Gym.
No, he doesn't even look like he picked up a weight the whole day of his life. So don't let that confuse you. The shirts are still for sale.
I saw that and I thought...
And then someone said that your value of your shirt just went up.
Yeah, well, you're going to get a lot of visibility, but
Yeah, exactly.
maybe not for the right reason.
Not for the right reason. All right, thank you for watching Rick's
Thank you.
Corner. And Doug, thank you for being
Nice
here.
being here always.
Yes, I enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time. So stay tuned.
It's rickdracen.com. He is the equalizer, baby. See you next time.